Am I the asshole for cutting off all financial support with 30 days notice after my family packed my bags and kicked me out the night I lost my job?
Welcome to Plopcom Story. Today's story is about a man who spent 15 years supporting his family, only to be treated like he mattered less than the bills he paid. But when he finally walked away, everything changed, and what's happened next left the family facing a reality that they never expected. Let's get started.
I came home on a Tuesday to find my dad taking down my graduation photo. He wasn't angry. He wasn't saying anything. He was just quietly unhooking it from the wall and setting it face down on the bed next to the cardboard boxes he had already filled with my clothes. My sister Megan was in the doorway. She said, "So who's going to pay for my car now?" That was the first thing anyone said to me after I lost my job. Some background. I'm 37. I've been a financial analyst for 15 years. For most of that time, I have also been the financial foundation of my family, not by choice, exactly, but by a gradual accumulation of responsibilities that nobody asked me about and nobody thanked me for. The mortgage on my parents' house, $2,400 a month. My dad has a chronic health condition, and the insurance that covers him runs $780 a month. My sister Megan needed a car 3 years ago and couldn't get approved on her own. So I co-signed and have been paying $650 a month on a loan I didn't want to be on. Groceries, repairs, emergencies, the kind of things that happen in households where nobody else is tracking the outflows. I added it up recently. 15 years, approximately $340,000. Not one conversation about any of it. Not a thank you. Just an expectation, solid and unspoken, that I would keep going. I was let go on a Tuesday morning, restructuring. It wasn't personal, and it wasn't a surprise in hindsight, but it felt like a floor dropping. By the time I got home that afternoon, my family already knew. A friend of my mom's works reception at a company that shares a building with my former employer. She had heard something and called as my mom didn't ask how I was. She said that with my income situation changing, it made more sense for Megan to have my room since Megan needed more space and I could find somewhere else. She said it practically, the way you discuss rearranging furniture, that my dad didn't argue with her. He just started packing. I stood in my room watching him put 15 years of my life into 2 boxes, and I thought, okay, this is the information I needed. I carried the boxes to my car. I sat in the parking lot of a grocery store for about 40 minutes. Then I drove to a hotel to hear what my family did not know. For the past years, I had been building something on the side. A financial consulting firm. Started with a colleague named Greg, who I had worked with for a decade. We called it Sinclair and Whitmore. We had been taking clients slowly, carefully, building the infrastructure before we announced anything. We had an office in Austin, Texas. The business was doing well. I had been planning to resign in about 4 months anyway. The Tuesday made the decision for me. I drove to Austin the following weekend. I moved into an apartment I had already been quietly furnishing for 2 months. I started working full-time at the company I owned. For 16 days, my family did not call to ask where I was or whether I was okay. The automatic payments I had set up, mortgage, insurance, car, were still running. Nobody noticed those. Or if they noticed, they assumed it was going to keep going forever regardless of anything that had happened. On day 16, Megan called. She said, "Did you pay the car insurance this month?" I didn't get a confirmation. That was the entire call. I hung up and I wrote an email. I told them I was in Austin. I told them I had a new situation, and I was no longer in a position to continue the financial arrangements I had been maintaining. I gave them 30 days' notice on the mortgage, the insurance, and the car loan. I told them I was not negotiating the timeline. Then I posted this as, am I the asshole? I know the insurance for my dad is the part that's complicated. He's sick and the coverage matters. But I also know that I paid for that insurance for years while my family told me to my face that I had never contributed anything. While my dad packed my boxes in silence. While my sister's first words to me after I lost my job were about her car payment, I need someone outside this to tell me if cutting the insurance is too far. Everything else I feel clear on. That part I'm not sure about too long. Didn't rate. 15 years paying $3,800 plus a month covering my family's mortgage, my dad's health insurance, and my sister's car loan. About $340,000 total. Lost my job on a Tuesday. Got home to find Dad packing my room so my sister could have it. First thing anyone said to me, who's going to pay for her car? Drove to Austin, where I've been quietly building my own consulting firm for 2 years. Family didn't call for 16 days. Sister's first call was about car insurance. Just sent an email giving 30 days notice on all financial support. Am I the asshole for cutting the health insurance? Edit. Email is sent. Waiting not edit to. They called. A lot. Update coming when I can sit down and write it.
This story gives off a strange feeling right from the beginning. Losing a job is already one of those moments when people hope their family will rally around them. But here it feels like the opposite happened. Instead of concern, support, or even basic curiosity about how he was handling the situation, everyone immediately seemed focused on what his unemployment would mean for them. That contrast makes the opening his much harder than the financial tales themselves. What I find most interesting is that the job loss may have accidentally is both something that's have been hidden for years, where someone wholly solves every problem, pays every bill, and keeps everything running. People can start treating that support like part of the furniture. Always there, never questioned. The moment it disappears, other one's food priorities become impossible to ignore. My guess is that the plot of phone cons isn't really the end of the story. It's the beginning of a reckoning. Maybe someone in the family will finally realize how badly they treated him, or maybe they double down and blame him for refusing to keep carrying everyone else. Either way, I have a feeling the next update is going to reveal whether this family relationship was built on love, obligations, or something much more uncomfortable.
Update 1. 3 weeks later, of call started about 4 hours after I sent the email at my mom first. Then my sister. Then a number I didn't recognize that turned out to be a cousin I hadn't spoken to in years who had apparently been briefed on the situation. My mom left voicemails. My sister left voicemails. The general theme was that I was a selfish person who was destroying the family over a personal grievance after my mom posted something on Facebook. I won't quote it directly, but the substance was that I had abandoned my family at a time of need and that she didn't know where she had gone wrong raising me. I didn't respond to any of it. I let the 30 days run. When the payments stopped, things moved quickly. The car loan defaulted within 2 weeks. Megan had no income that could cover $650 a month and no way to refinance without a cosigner. The bank repossessed the car on a Thursday. She texted me about it. I read the text and didn't respond that my parents had to restructure the mortgage. My dad, to his credit, did not call me about this. He handled it quietly. They ended up renting out my old room to a college student to cover the gap. I heard this from my grandma Ruth, who's the one person in my family who calls me to ask how I am and means. Yet the office opening was 2 months ago, Sinclair, and Whitmore had expanded enough to take her. Larger space, and we had a proper opening event, clients, partners. People from the Austin financial community. About 50 people. My grandma flew in. She is 73 years old, and she had asked me months earlier if she could come, and I had said, of course. Someone from my hometown who knew my family posted something about the event on Facebook. I don't know exactly what they said. What I know is that 3 days before the opening, my mom, my dad, and my sister booked flights to Austin as they arrived at the event. I was in the middle of talking to a client when I saw them come through the door. My mom had the specific energy she has when she has decided she is the wrong party in a situation, and everyone around her needs to understand this, she said, loudly enough for several people to hear. That I had been hiding money from my family for years, and that I owed them an explanation, that I want to be accurate about what happened next. Because I've described it a few ways in and I want to get it right. I didn't raise my voice. I finished what I was saying to the client. I excused myself. I walked over to where my family was standing, and I said, calmly and in a normal volume, you packed my boxes the night I lost my job. You didn't call for 16 days. The first call I got was about a car payment. I don't know anyone in this room an explanation for what I built. My grandma Ruth, who had been watching from across the room, walked over and stood next to me. She didn't say much. She didn't need to. She just stood there that my dad looked at the floor. Then he looked up. He said, I'm sorry. He said it quietly, and he said it like he meant it. Then he put his hand on my mom's arm and said they should go. And he looked at Megan, and the 3 of them left. I went back to my guests.
Coach just appreciates how irritable that moment was. The situations didn't come from watching someone get dragged, it came from the sheer relief of someone finally was in them, that everyone else was too afraid to mention. The mother show up is spending 8 conversations. The sister still seems focused on what he has lost, and yet the most of stressing burden in the room was that. Up until now, he mostly been silent, which honestly made him hard to read. But that quiet apology felt different. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't defensive. It's too real. And then there's Grandma Through, who somehow managed to steal the saying, without saying much at all. The fact that she is beside him when nobody else would say so much. But here's what I'm wondering now. Was that apology the end of the conflict, or just the first step in a family that's finally being forced to face years of resentment? Because something tells me this story isn't finished yet.
Update 2. For now, a few months have passed. Megan is working at a plant nursery. She found an apartment with a roommate. Small, apparently, but hers. I know this from my grandma. I have not spoken to Megan directly. I'm not ready for that conversation, and I'm not going to have it before I am as my mom has quieted down. The Facebook post stopped. She hasn't reached out to me, and I haven't reached out to her. I don't know what that becomes. I'm not forcing it in any direction as my dad came to Austin about 6 weeks after the opening. He came alone. He hadn't told me he was coming. He just texted when he was at the airport and asked if I had time to meet. I said yes. We met at a coffee shop near my office. He asked if we could walk over and see the building. I said sure. He stood outside Sinclair and Whitmore for a while. He read the name on the door. He looked at the offices through the glass. Then he sat down on a bench outside and he cried. He said he had not understood what I had been doing. He said he had let things happen in his house that he should not have let happen. He said he was ashamed and he was sorry and that he did not expect me to do anything with that information except know that it was true. He didn't ask me for anything. He didn't mention money or the mortgage or the insurance. He just said what he had to say. I sat with him for a while. Then I said I heard him. Then we got coffee and talked about the company for about an hour. He asked good questions. He seemed genuinely interested. He flew home that evening that the financial arrangements are done. There is no mortgage payment, no insurance, no car loan. This is permanent. I call my dad on Sunday afternoons. Short calls. He tells me something about his week. I tell him something about mine. It's careful and small and more than we ever had before, which I'm aware is a low bar and also a real thing. Sinclair and Whitmore is growing. Greg and I have been talking about bringing on 2 additional analysts before the end of the year. The Austin office has enough light in the mornings that I sometimes just sit in it before anyone else arrives and think about how different things are. I pay my own rent. I pay my own groceries. I pay for exactly what I choose to pay for and nothing else. For 15 years, I didn't know what that felt like. I know now not. The asshole, obviously. But the question I kept coming back to wasn't about the 30 days or the insurance or the opening night confrontation. It was whether 15 years of showing up for people who were not showing up for me had to end the way it ended, with boxes and a graduation photo laid face down on a bed. I think it had too. I think that was the only ending that would have made me understand clearly enough to stop. The night they packed my bags was the night I finally unpacked my own life. I'm okay. I'm more than okay. Sinclair and Whitmore is on the door, and the office has good morning light, and my dad calls on Sundays. That's enough, Dr. Long. Didn't read. 30 days ran out. Car repossessed. Parents restructured mortgage. Rented out my old room. Family crashed my office opening in Austin in front of 50 guests. I said my piece calmly. Grandma Ruth stood next to me. Dad apologized and took them home. Megan is working at a plant nursery. Has her own apartment. Mom went quiet. Dad flew to Austin alone 6 weeks later. Stood outside my office and cried. Apologized without asking for anything. I call him on Sundays now. No financial support. No exceptions. The office is good morning light. I'm okay.
So what stayed with me the most after finishing this story was how quietly everything changed. There wasn't a huge argument that split the family. There wasn't a traumatic speech that suddenly made everyone understand. Instead, the story feels like watching someone slowly wake up after spending years living according to other people's expectations. At the start, you can't help but focus on how unfair it all is. The packed boxes, the face-down photo, and his family acting like his job loss was an inconvenience to them instead of a tragedy for him. But as the story wraps up, it stopped being a tale of betrayal and becomes a lesson in what happened that you finally drop a heavy burden you were never supposed to be carrying anyway. What I find especially interesting is that once the support disappears, everyone was forced to adapt. Megan's found work. The parents found the way to keep the house. Life didn't collapse the way everyone seemed to feel. In a strange way, removing himself from the fray apparently rather may have helped at one role. And then there's the father. His apology felt meaningful because it's arrived without excuses, rester, or expectations. He didn't come to reclaim what was lost. He came to acknowledge us. The final line about the office having good morning light honestly says more than pages of explanation could. It feels like someone who's been years surviving has finally found room to breathe. Not every ending needs to be loud. Sometimes the most satisfying ending is simply finding peace after a very long season and being taken for ransom. So let me know what you guys think about this one, because I just want to hear that's about this. And if you enter this story, the forgetful line is a story to pout comparison story. And I will see you on the next one. Goodbye.